how much water falls on your roof during a rain event, and then use that to figure out how much is going to come out each downspout, and therefore how much water storage you might want to consider putting in place. It's going to surprise you how much it is. So we're going to use Google Earth to do this. So let's make this small. Here's our beautiful planet. And you can put in your address in the little search bar here. I have already done that because I'm not going to just broadcast to the internet where I live, but a clue is that it's on this continent. So as we continue to zoom in here, we begin to see the urban landscape. And let's take it here, and then let's go, yeah, maybe to here. Let's go 3D just for fun. So you can see it's a pretty typical urban landscape. We do have a pretty good amount of trees. There's a golf course over here in this corner. There's some schoolyards with a baseball diamond, etc. But pretty typical. So our lot is 50 meters by 125, or 50 feet by 125 feet. I wish it was 50 meters. So pretty cool how it renders all the trees and everything into 3 dimensions. Even the little chimney on the house is in 3 dimensions. So if we want to figure out how much rain is going to fall onto our roof, then what we need to do is we need to figure out the square area of this roof. So they have this little tool here, measure distance and area. Click on that. And we're just going to want to click at a corner of the house, and then it'll measure the distance between that click and the next click. And we just click at each corner. This here is a little add-on sunroom. We're not going to include that. We can play around with that later in a second. So once we've clicked all the corners, then, and we hover our cursor back here, then it brings up that close shape option. Yes, that's what we want to do. So it is now calculated. The square area of the roof is 223.56 meters squared. And you're going to want this in meters because the formula is that 1 millimeter of rain falling on 1 square meter of surface will be 1 liter of water. So that's to say, if you took 1 liter of water and you dumped it out onto a square meter, it would cover that square meter in 1 millimeter. So let's say that we had that 1 millimeter of rain on our particular roof here of 223 meters squared. So 1 millimeter of rain by 223 meters squared would be 223 liters. So your standard rain barrel is 200 liters. So in real life, when that water falls onto the roof, it's on an asphalt shingle roof like this, it's gonna, 1 millimeter of rain is just gonna sit on the asphalt and it's gonna evaporate. It's not gonna end up coming down the downspouts. But let's say something more realistic, like a 5 millimeter rain event, so enough to water the garden for a few days, but not enough to be anything too substantial. So let's go 5 millimeters by 223 square meters. That is 1,115 liters of water. And let's say our house has 4 downspouts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's divide that by 4, right? Approximately. We can get exact calculations for each downspout. If you really want to get fancy, I can show you how to do that in a second. But so let's divide that by 4 to just get a good rough approximation. That would be 278 liters per downspout on just a 5 millimeter rain event. So if you had your rain barrel, 1 rain barrel at each downspout, then that would be pretty decent for a 5 millimeter rain event. You'd capture most of it, and 80 or about 80 liters would run off. But let's say that we had nothing too crazy, but just let's say 30 millimeters of rain. Often that happens over the course of 2 or 3 days, and you're not watering the garden in that time because it's raining. So it's about the same whether it happens over 2 or 3 days or in just 1 day. So we'd say our 30 millimeters of rain came down onto our 223 square meters of roof. That would be 6,690 liters of water. So to give you an idea of what 1,000 liters of water looks like, let's go over here. Make sure that, oh darn, I lost the calculator. Okay, so that's like one of these things. This is 1 meter squared. So 1 meter by 1 meter, yeah, by 1 meter. So And we have a couple of these at the house, but that's 1,000 liters of water. 1 meter squared of water is 1,000 liters. So when we say that almost 7,000 liters of water was coming down onto our house here, that's that means that if we had one of those at each of the four corners, that would not be enough, not nearly enough. We would need two of those at each of the corners. Then we would capture every drip of rain and have some left over yet. So just to say, here's two big points here, is that number one, you need more storage than you think. Number two, where you direct your overflow is vital. So just here's a quick example with our house. Let's bring this back to two-dimensional. You can see in the front yard here, there's a series of trails here like this. And these are our wood chip trails. So what we did is we dug like a 2-foot deep trench. We put wood chips in there, and what happens then is as the water comes down off the roof, comes down the downspout, fills up the rain barrels that are sitting here. Once those are full, then they overflow into a pipe that's directed into these trails. So then those trails have many thousands of liters of water of holding capacity, and then that acts as like a giant water battery that soaks into the landscape. And you know, the best place to store your water is in the soil when there's that much of it coming down. So one design consideration you might want to take into place is that here we put in what's called a little check dam. So that's like a little dam that's just lower than the next lowest spot in the system. Because if so much water comes down that the system overflows, we don't want it to back up towards the house or go into some unknown direction. We want to have the design to be controlled. So what we did is we put that little check dam in here. The sidewalk continues just under the canopy of the tree here, and it overflows onto the sidewalk and then down into another little ditch just a couple inches deep at the edge of the boulevard, so that the water then spreads out all through that and then can soak into the boulevard. And once the boulevard's full, then it finally goes onto the street. So that's the design there. And if we really wanted to get super fancy, let's just say our little shed in the back here. Let's start a new calculation. So then we could go, something like this. And get just our tiny little shed here. So that's 4.17 meters. So obviously, let's get our calculator back here. So if 4.71 meters, and let's say that 30 millimeters of rain again, so that would be 120 liters of water would come down off this little garden shed during a 30 millimeter rain event. So one rain barrel is probably sufficient for this little garden shed. But having one rain barrel at one corner of the downspouts of the house, while still awesome, is not nearly what it could be in terms of how much water you're storing. We have 4,600 liters of water storage at our house right now, and we're going to actually upgrade that by another few thousand liters on the sides of the house here. Another couple thousand liters of storage is going to get added at these two corners this year. So if you want to get really specific with calculating how much water is going to come to each downspout, here's how you would do that. So we can see the slope of the roof, well, especially if we go back to the 3 dimensions, right? We can see the different slopes of the roof. So what you would want to do is, let's say for this downspout here. So it's going to come from about here to here to here to here to there to there. We're going to close the shape again. So that's about 60 square meters. So let's bring up our calculator again. And so we would say 60 square meters times that 30 millimeters of rain. So that'd be 1,800 liters of water would be coming down at this downspout during a 30 millimeter rain event. So you can even get super specific like that and calculate, because different houses are going to have different slopes to the roof, and you may have 4 downspouts, but maybe it's going to be a different shape for your house. So yeah, and then you can start to calculate off, your garage or something like that, or maybe even like your neighbor would let you take water off their garage, or who knows what, right? Sometimes water's causing a problem for someone else, but you'd be happy to enter it into your system. So there you go. How cool is that? Fun times. Have fun with that.